It's Wealth Our Way Wednesdays. You're tuned in to the WOW Network. Let's get it. Long story. Where do I start? Let's begin with the interesting part. Mean streets, eroded defeat is what taught me to speak from the heart. Many choices, few of them good. That's how they keep us all trapped in the hood. If I could write a rule book for my people, I thought we could escape from there where we stood. So here I am giving content to you along that with what you should do. I'm here to speak wealth to provide you help to get it started for your family yourself. So sit down, turn up the sound, lay back with your feet off the ground. You tuned in to the best in the streets. Wealth away, I have the world at your feet. Let's get it. Financial Power Hour. What is going on? Each and every smiling face that can see or hear me. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Wealth Our Way Wednesday and the Financial Power Hour, hosted by your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform, Wealth Our Way, where our motto is, wealth is not only for the wealthy. I have a dynamic show in store for you this evening. We have two amazingly accomplished, intelligent women on our program tonight, sisters that one's a repeat offender and friend of the program, and another new face, which I'm sure you guys will all love when you hear her background, her reach, and her purpose. I've done some research. My team has done some research. She fits right in with the things that we speak on here at the Financial Power Hour. So without further ado, let me introduce tonight's guests. Up first, the lovely Simone Golden. And we've had Simone on the program before. Simone is a mental health specialist. She will touch on what her actual specialties are. I like to let my guests tell people about themselves because I think no one can promote you better than you. So welcome tonight, Simone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. And before I start, I want to give you a little shout out because I hadn't seen that new introduction with the little rap at the beginning.
You like that?
So many skills. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
See
I
you.
appreciate it. I tried to do it. Zach made it look special. He looped it and gave it that Zach, like they used to say, P. Diddy gave it that extra touch back in the 90s.
A
Now we got
little
Zach giving
soft.
it we got to get that little spin on it. And
Right.
I'm so looking forward to our conversation tonight. And we are joined by a new face on the Financial Power Hour, Miss Lilias John, and I'm going to have her correct me if I'm mispronouncing her name. We did not have a chance to brief before the show to make sure I didn't butcher it. But welcome to the show, Miss Financial Stylist.
Thank you. And you said my name perfectly. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start by each of you ladies telling the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into tonight's content of the show. We're going to flip it because Simone's the vet on the program. We're going to let Lilias go first.
Well, thank you guys for having me. So my name is Lilias John. I go by your financial stylist, and I teach people how to manage their money as well as build wealth through real estate or the stock market.
We love that. We love that. Miss Simone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Simone Golden. I'm a licensed social worker, mental health specialist, advocate. I specialize in working with communities of color, bringing awareness to mental health supports, professional developments and trainings geared specifically towards communities of color and people that serve communities of color. So my passion is mental health, and my sub passion within mental health is working with people, that are marginalized, Black and brown communities. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you guys both for being here. What I want to say, everyone who knows this platform, and in particular my mission, knows I tie very closely. I used to have a program and we're bringing it back. Zach has told me we need more content. So we're going to bring back the program I entitled Wealth, Health, and Everything Else. And we talked about so many topics on that program, mainly the connection between our physical health and our mental health, where that intersection of our financial health comes in. There is so much that we do in every community, not just underserved communities, mainstream communities. where we're all at the end of the day trying to make a better life for ourselves and the people we love. And unfortunately, and fortunately, we have this beautiful thing that we're utilizing right now called the internet and social media. And one of the things that really sticks out to me over and over and over again, everybody who knows me knows my nickname is Tank. And I got the adjective of Big Tank because I'm a big dude. Been big my whole life. Even when I was in shape, I was a big in shape dude. I played ball at 6'3", 280 pounds at Temple University. Shout out to you. And you know, the thing about when you're navigating through life as a big person, for most people, I don't have a lot of the big people insecurities, but we're always looking at other people and comparing ourselves and saying, oh, wait, are they able to do that? How are they able to do that? And until you later find out, oh, you know what, they chest sit up like that because they taped it that way, or their butt looks like that because they got an injection, or we don't know the reality. We know what we see. And I'm a 53-year-old person in a few days. My birthday is Sunday.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. With that being said, I come from a time where there's always been peer pressure, but it wasn't in your face the way it is now. This need for perfection, this need for everyone to see the best of us, this need to broadcast everything. And it concerns me what that's going to do for the state of all of our mental health, in particular, the next generation, our children. And what I wanted to cover tonight in particular, having someone who's focused on finances, having someone who's focused on mental health, someone like myself who's kind of bridged both worlds as a member of Black Men Heal's board of directors, which is an organization dedicated to giving men of color free therapy sessions, as well as being the host of the Financial Power Hour. I wanted to just have a forum where we could throw out all of the things that come across our desks in our walks of life as to how people are struggling with keeping up with the Joneses, or if you watch the video Notorious, keeping up with the Combses, and how we can promote a better level of both financial and mental health that will serve us as a community. So that's going to be the general fireside chat tonight. I want to get us started by having Lilias tell us a little more about what made her create her platform. I read her bio. I love what made her create her platform, but I want her to tell you guys about it.
So it's a double story, actually. So I've been teaching financial literacy since 2008. Started from reinventing my own financial life. I probably was one of the only people I knew who was 18 and received an inheritance, which I blew in 3 years. My parents said, use it to pay for school. And I was like, what? Shopping, hello. And so after rebuilding my own financial life, I was like, man, there's got to be room and space for me to teach this to other people, those who may have never received an inheritance, but just want to build back from scratch. And so couple that with, I went to school for economics. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I went to Hunter.
Brooklyn.
Yes, sir.
Stand up.
And I got into real estate right out of college, moving from working for a private developer, then doing some consulting. And then I landed a job at Columbia University in New York City. And while at the university, the real estate project I was hired for was inching its way into Harlem. And what I heard from the residents was, my kid is never going to be able to afford to go to your school. My kid is not going to even qualify to go to Columbia University. I don't want you in my backyard. And I realized there was this huge disconnect between the university and the community, and they weren't hearing each other. And what I realized, because my background was real estate, but I also had this financial literacy sort of foundation that I built for myself, what if I start teaching the community about financial literacy so they can understand they can put their own stake in the ground and not feel like they're going to get pushed out of their neighborhood because of this university coming in, because of gentrification? How do we pull money together and buy the building where we live? So that's sort of how it started. I started teaching financial literacy publicly then. Before that, I was just teaching my family and friends. And I started teaching in Harlem for free at the university. They let me use their space to teach the community how to manage their money. And
That
it
is
just
great.
sort of took off from there.
I love it. Hands-on experience, learning the trade and craft as you're actually implementing your own uses of improved financial literacy, teaching it to others. I think so much is lost, and we're going back to that. I think that's another, I'm going to always give the gift and curse of the internet. That's another
Mhm.
advantage of social media and the internet. They're calling it a gig economy now, but I think we're going back to what originally started out as a barter economy. We didn't have a medium of exchange when civilization and societies first started. So if I could build a house and you could make a mean ass pot roast, we got together and I built your crib, you made the pot roast, and we were both better off for it.
Mhm.
And with the advent of growing, more stable societies, we started having stores and, i.e., middlemen and the mediums of exchange. And it took away a little bit of the direct exchange between person to person, adding an intermediary. But now we're getting back to with all of this access where, hey, you do something that I need, I do something you need. Let's figure out a way to have an exchange of goods or services. And teaching is right at the forefront of that. And that lends me right to the beautiful Simone, teaching people how to cope with their environment and deal with the stresses. I always say I am perfect until I walk out the door and encounter another person. Like I got life all figured out and good when I'm in my room. Even when I go out to my living room, I'm straight. The minute I go outside and see the first person that speaks and starts their bull, that's when my life starts to deteriorate a little bit. Talk to me, Simone, about what you're seeing in this day and age. Things are rough in the world, especially in our country. We got mass shootings, we have economic instability, we have rampant racism, we have political divides. What are you telling people just how to take a deep breath and get through tonight?
So it's going beyond that, right? Because the conversation of like take a deep breath, it'll all be all right. Like everybody knows, like that's not where it's at, right? It's going to take a little bit more than that. And the folks that I'm working with within my practice in like individual type of support are people who are like, I'm not necessarily working with a population of people who have severe mental illness and have an inability to function. I'm working with the people who are struggling because they're dealing with the the depression and anxiety that comes with life, that comes with issues with financial instability, with access to wealth, access to the inequality that exists within our country and the world in general, for folks, folks of color and folks in general. Um, and something that I talk to people a lot about is making connections. So what you Tank just said, right? When we're in our bubble, it feels safe, right? If I just stay in my house in the comfort and safety of my house, like, and I don't have to face the reality of what's happening outside, then, that does feel good. But that's not the reality. At some point, we have to step outside of our bubble and face the reality of what is happening. Even if we try to minimize that as much as we can, there's some aspect of the outside world that we have to come in contact with. So I try to tell people, therapy is not everyone's route. It doesn't have to be that you have to go get a therapist and sit down with a therapist every week. That is a route that some folks have found works for them. And that I'm so happy that the conversation about therapy and this type of support is becoming more prevalent, especially within our culture. Because I do feel like it is a great support for a lot of people. It's not for everyone, but for those who it is for, it can be a real lifeline for folks. But it doesn't have to start there. For us to be able to cope with the everyday reality and struggles of you know racism, and it doesn't have to be blatant racism. It doesn't have to be, that I bumped into a Karen or a Trump, out in the world. It could be, the microaggressions I experience at work every day, right? It could be those things, because those little things add up, right? And those are the things that affect us more so a lot of times than those macro issues. The macro issues are there and they affect us systemically and they're affecting all of us. But those things that we face on a day-to-day basis are the reason why I tell people, find your tribe, right? Tribe doesn't have to be a therapist. The tribe can be your biological family. It could be friends. It could be, a religious community. It could be your neighbor. It doesn't matter who it is, but you need to at least have one person that you can go to and you can talk to, and who can look at you and know to ask a question, right? Who can know how to intervene if it looks like something is off a little bit. We can't navigate this world singularly, right? We can't exist within our own bubble. So when it comes to that conversation of, everything will be okay, the conversation is making sure that you are connected to another human being. Those, even though sometimes people get on our nerves and we don't want to step outside and come in contact with folks every day, there has to be at least one person that you have in this world that you can go to, that you feel safe with, that is allowed within your safe space, that can be that person that you can rely on as you try, because that's all of us are doing, is trying to navigate everything that continues to come at us day after day.
I agree with you completely. Two things come to mind in hearing what you just said. The first one is based upon things happening cumulatively and adding up and giving us a tipping point. One of my favorite movies to watch when I was younger was Michael Douglas in Falling Down, when he had just had enough and he just went at it with everybody. One thing too many happened to Michael Douglas and it was a wrap. There's a saying, and I'm going to butcher it. It says that one soul is seldom sold in one grand auction. It is normally the result of many smaller barters. That statement has always really captivated and stuck with me, because if we think about it, we are very easily able to identify grand events that have happened, positive or negative, in our life. And we think they're so important. We think they're so big. This day happened, the day my parents divorced, or my great grandmother who I love died, or I graduated from here, or I got my first job. And in reality, those big events don't have, in my opinion, the long lasting effect on us that the daily drop of the pebble in the jar has. And that path that we're on and that cumulative effect of it, it brings it back to the conversation of the tribe. We have to create an environment for ourselves. And this covers both lanes of what we're talking about tonight. We want to have a tribe or a community around us that is like who we wish to be. They say that your income will reflect the net average of the 5 closest people to you. Now, for everybody, that doesn't necessarily match up, but I found in my dealings, now it's a very wide range. I got one of my homies who's poor, still my boy to this day, is my man, never going away. And then I got a homie that's a multi-millionaire. So you take the mean average of all my 5, it's right about what I make. It's a very, very big standard deviation, different from person to person. With that being said, though, our mental health, our physical health is pretty much the same. Like, so I'll go back. I always like to pick on myself because I can take it. With this weight, I don't have a lot of friends that do yoga and are vegans. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wouldn't fit. Hey, Tank, we're going to go get some zucchini. Y'all go ahead and knock that out. I'm going to go get this cheesesteak. And, we tend to be around, our community fits what we're trying to have comfort in. And the key to a life well lived is expanding that comfort. It takes me to a question that I have for your financial stylist. When you experienced 2008, which was the economic harrowing for everyone in this country, your background wasn't in finances. So what made you say, hey, here's where I'm going to plant my flag and start fixing this area of my life so that the totality of my life improves in the right direction? What portion of that was also grounded in your own mental health?
So, okay, this is a loaded question. So I will attempt to dissect it. I tend to be the type of person that does not allow circumstance to influence my outcome. So that includes me being a woman, that includes me being a person of color. I believe that what we stand on value wise, what we believe about ourselves, what we know has an impact on us that's just as powerful as the environment that we're in. And so for me, 2008, yeah, this was this huge financial crisis. But if you know anything about economics, financial crisis is also the biggest time for economic opportunity, right? So you have two choices in this instance: whine and cry about the financial pitfall that everyone is falling into and the crisis, or turn it into an opportunity. I chose to turn it into an opportunity. And so knowing that those who I was teaching weren't necessarily affected by the economic downturn for the housing crisis, because the majority of them were not homeowners. Now you can have other indicators, like, you know, a lot of people dealt with sort of a mini recession in 2008 to 2010. People lost their jobs. So we had that influence that needed to be addressed. But what that means also is a lot of people got a fresh start.
Yes.
You're starting from ground zero. If you have nothing, the only place you can go is up.
Yes.
And so if I start to teach you how to manage your money better from the bargain basement and show you how to build wealth from when you have nothing, the only place you can go is up. The only thing you can do is succeed. So for me, that was the thought process. It wasn't really like what's happening out there in the world and the economy. Those things are going to happen regardless of whether we are dialed in or not. What are we going to do individually that helps improve our situation personally?
I love that.
And so I think for a lot of people, they don't understand. And I'm glad that we have someone here that speaks to mental health, because a lot of people don't understand how much their financial history and what they were exposed to in their families with money impacts how they use money today.
Right.
Right? There are three things that affect your financial picture and your situation as a whole. It's your financial history, so what you believed about money as a child, what you saw your family do and how they used money, what they thought about money, what they said about money. Financial knowledge, which are the things you learn about how to budget or how to pay bills or how to invest. A lot of people are not taught how to invest, so that's a whole nother subject. But those knowledge-based things, and then it's your financial habits. That's the third piece. And that's the pebble that you're talking about. That's the day-to-day, daily habit, daily way you use money in your life. Do you, you hear this, are you like penny wise or pound foolish? Like, are you making the small decisions on a daily basis that add up to great financial moves? Or are you worried about the big things that you think are having a long-term impact that don't?
It's great that you say that, because, I like to be validated and have people actually think that I know what I'm talking about. Today's 15 Minutes of Finance program was a part 2, where the topic was, yes, the system is rigged, but that's not why you're broke. And one of the things that we touched on at the end of it was creating a financial system for yourself that's easy to follow. Because if we have to go too far out of our normal daily habit and routine to do something that's going to change our life, we're not going to do it. And I touched on acorns. I haven't done a lot of research on acorns, but just the concept of it. Hey, I have this thing. I'm going to go out and spend money regardless. I'm going to the movies this weekend. I'm going grocery shopping. I'm going to buy some Jordans. And you're going to round up to the next $1.87 to go into my investment account. I didn't even have to do anything. I didn't even think about it. And the more we set up things in our life that yield the result that we wish for them to yield without having to invest a decision multiple times a day, logically will get it done. That concept right there is why I have you two ladies on the show tonight as a tandem, because part of it is knowledge and money, part of it is human behavior.
Yes.
So human behavior comes from our psychology and our training of ourselves. And that is why I know there is such a strong connection between our financial health and our mental health, to the point where it's often a chicken or egg argument with people. I'm depressed because I'm poor. Or am I poor because I'm depressed and I don't go out and do what I'm supposed to do? It's a circle. And sometimes we don't know which one is leading the other one. It's very easy to say, I am a certain way as a result of my situation, but it's just as easy to determine that my situation is what it is as a result of how I am. What I would ask from a standpoint of what Simone was touching on earlier, I was on a plane last weekend and I watched a movie, long overdue to watch. I'm a huge Tom Hanks fan. I watched A Man Called Otto, and I cried a little bit on A Man Called Otto, probably not at the spots where everybody else cried, but I cried because I suffer from some severe mental health issues. And one of the major ways my mental health issues manifest themselves and trick me is it gives me a feeling that life is joyless, which catches a lot of people off guard with me because I'm always smiling, always talking, always upbeat. Everybody thinks I'm this gregarious extrovert when in reality I could stay in the house for the next 7 years, do not see another human being and never be happier. Like, I am the biggest introvert any of you have ever met. And you have no idea. Like, it's crazy. With that being said, it's often a challenge for me, as I alluded to earlier, to interact with other people. We can't see, a friend of mine always uses this quote, it's hard to see the picture when you're posing for it. So no matter how self-aware we tend to be, when we're looking at ourselves or assessing ourselves, we're going to miss something. We're going to miss something that an outside set of eyes would have picked up on. And it's also not only going to be seen by this outside set of eyes, it's going to have a different lens when it sees it. And if you're open to the feedback, you can learn a lot. Watching movies does that for me, or interacting with people from a distance where I can pick up without having to actually kind of get engaged. When I watched what Otto was doing in this movie, I said, man, that detachment, that feeling as though life was supposed to go a certain way, investing heavily into that, getting the pain of that not working out, and then making a decision that I never want to experience that pain again. So I'm going to shut off the ability for that pain to ever exist. That is something that happens to us in love. That is something that happens to us in money. That is something that happens to us in health. There are so many different avenues that we can go down where we see this didn't work out, but I'm alive and I can deal with where I'm at now. I'll never try that again. Simone, in your daily dealing with people in your practice and in your talks, is that a mindset that you find a lot of people have adopted, that it didn't work out, I'm not going back to that well again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all can think of examples in our own life, right? That, especially when you say in love, right? When relationships don't work, I'm done, I'm done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, that is how we protect ourselves, right? That's how we feel is a way to protect ourselves. But the purpose of seeking help, whether it's professional or just looking within your tribe of folks, is exactly that, exactly what you just said. You have to have an outside set of eyes to be able to give you that insight, because you can't see it yourself. And it's not that we have to jump right back in to the fire, right, when we've been burnt before. It's that we find a safe enough space to where that person or persons is able to challenge us just enough to slowly inch our way back in a safe way. And then before we know it, we realize, like, oh, okay, I'm back out here again and I'm okay, right? It's okay. But it has to be in a way that feels safe. And sometimes, that's why sometimes, our partner or our parent, or the people closest to us aren't always that person for us, because oftentimes the people closest to us struggle with having a perspective that is without judgment, because we're too close, right? So sometimes you may need somebody who is able to kind of have an objective perspective to be able to come in and provide that type of support for you, where it is non-judgmental, where it can be a safe space. One of the things that it reminded me of when you were just talking is I just got trained as an instructor in something called mental health first aid. And mental health first aid is an initiative. It's not new. It's been around. It started in Australia, but it's been around for years now. But we are trying to get it to the point where it is just as accessible and necessary as medical first aid, in so many different professions. Even my profession as a social worker and therapist, I have to be CPR certified and first aid trained every 2 years, because I'm working with folks, and that's just something I have to have with my licensure, right? Physical first aid, right, is about saving the life of somebody that, well, how many times have you had to perform CPR or medical first aid for a stranger, or even somebody you know? Not very often. I've never had to.
Yeah.
However, how many times have you had to potentially intervene with someone who's experiencing a low level mental health issue? They got fired from a job, they lost a parent, they're just having some hard times, or somebody who's on the other end of the spectrum where maybe they're having suicidal thoughts. There are so many more times that the average person is expected to potentially offer some sort of support for someone experiencing some kind of mental health concern somewhere on that spectrum. So the idea of mental health first aid, as an instructor, I come in and provide. It's a full 1-day training where the participants get certified with your little certification, same as regular first aid, excuse me, in mental health first aid. And it's a full day training that prepares the average person. This is not for anyone in particular. It's for teachers. It's for, folks that work at, a corporate office. It's for, your neighbors. It's for I think the slogan is like anybody who comes in contact with other human beings, right? So that idea that we are arming people with resources, not clinical resources, with everyday type of tools to be able to feel a little more prepared for helping out your fellow person who might be struggling. And it's initiatives like this with mental health first aid that I feel like are so important. And that's why I became an instructor. Because, like I said, the amount of interactions that we have with each other, whether it's someone you know personally or a stranger on the street, the same as first aid, you have a choice whether or not you want to intervene if somebody's bleeding on the ground, right? You don't have to. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to. It's the same with mental health first aid. If you feel comfortable to intervene and support in some way, we want you to know what to say and what not to say, because you could do more damage by saying the wrong thing, right? So the purpose of this training is to provide people with the tools to be able to know, if they choose to intervene and support, what the right things to say and do are.
I love that. And I want to touch on that and go a little deeper into that when we come back from the break. My talented producer has given me the time of commercial break. We're going to talk about the WOW Wealth Jumpstart, and we will return after this short message. It's funny, they say that man plans and God laughs. When I started Wealth Our Way, it was all about financial planning, trying to help people who came from underserved communities to get the same type of financial knowledge that those who are in the 1% get. But over the course of having Wealth Our Way, I learned a very serious pain point that affects many communities, but especially underserved communities. There just isn't anywhere to go to get estate planning documents, as well as learn about life insurance and retirement planning. So I created a program to solve that, the WOW Wealth Jumpstart. It's a simple program. You get 3 of the most crucial estate planning documents: a simple will, a durable power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy. But on top of that, you get an assessment of where you stand in terms of your retirement planning, as well as a complete indoctrination to all things life insurance. We do that for the low price of $697 or 4 installments of $197. So whether you're planning for your own retirement, looking at getting your own estate documents, or want to help a family member, spread the information about Wealth Our Way and the Wealth Jumpstart. Thank you. It's a beautiful thing when you see your people working and making beautiful commercials and whatnot. I gotta love that. Shout out to the team, Zach. You the man. With that being said, going back to what you were just talking about, Simone, a friend of mine shared a podcast episode this past week that was talking about mental health freedom fighters down in Miami that have created a mobile mental health crisis intervention team that they basically said, hey, look, a lot of mental health episodes, people call the cops. And a lot of these mental health episodes, especially in communities of color, when the cops show up, it doesn't go well. Somebody ends up shot, stabbed, whatever can happen. And there isn't enough training around and enough mental health professionals around to de-escalate situations. I have some very good friends in law enforcement. There's a love-hate relationship with law enforcement and communities of color sometimes. But I have some. I think we'll do better as a world when we learn to have more compassion for each other. And it's easier to have more compassion for each other when you know people, when you know someone. That's not a cop. That's John. I know John. John wouldn't do that. And there's too much division, but that's how you keep people down. You keep them divided. And what I saw what I heard in this particular podcast that educated me was that this group in Miami named themselves after a group that was originally from Pittsburgh. And I Bunker Hill, I want to say it is the Pittsburgh section, Bunker Hill in Pennsylvania, where back in the late 60s, early 70s, when you had a medical crisis, you called the cops. Now, I'm once again dating myself. I'm 53. I was born in 1970. So I don't know what they did in 1967. I don't know what they did in the 70s. I was still a baby. But apparently, we didn't have ambulances at the clip that they exist now. And when you fell in your home, when you got stabbed, when you broke an ankle at the basketball court, you dialed 911. And 80% of the time, a cop had to come get you and take you to the hospital. So what was happening in this particular section of Pittsburgh, a predominantly Black section of Pittsburgh, where the cops just were saying, no, we're not coming. Your mom is on the floor, passed out. What they were trained and taught back then is that Black people tend to drink too much. And when you get a call and someone says a Black person is passed out, they probably just drunk. Let them sleep it off. And they should be sitting there dying with a brain aneurysm. So the Black community took it upon themselves and self-empowered themselves to create an ambulance service where they responded. They couldn't get the dispatcher to dispatch to them. So they bought a police scanner, and they scanned the police frequency, and they answered calls, and they showed up. Something you said, Simone, about doing more harm than good. They were talking about the training, and the one gentleman was saying they got so good, and this tends to happen. We saw it in the movie, depicted in the movie Hidden Figures, when the white astronaut wouldn't go with the white people's calculations for how to get to the moon. He wanted the Black women's calculation because they have been proven to have done the job the best. Forget racism. When our life is on the line, we want the best. Mm-hmm. And, it's a white person to throw another white person right down the hall to get the Black doctor if they heard this Black doctor is the best. And the same with Black folks, we want the best when our life is on the line. There was a call that was made from a white neighborhood where they insisted that the Black medical people come pick them up because they just heard how good they were in transporting people to the emergency room. And one scenario, these people showed up, the freedom fighters showed up at a car accident where the cops were trying to take the person out the car, and they had to tell them, you're doing more harm than good. Like, let them stay there. This is the procedure for this. And it just shows the deficiencies that if you're having cops take people to the emergency room and they're not trained medical professionals, what can go wrong? Well, we have that today all over the internet. So it's great that we're talking about mental health and finance, because those are two areas where I see it a lot. You got the wrong people telling people what to do.
Mm-hmm.
As my man Rick Ross said it, you got those that have never done it telling you how to do it. And that's why I love what Lilias brings to the table with the fact that, you know what, she went to undergrad for economics, which is great, but it wasn't, I'm at Smith Barney or Merrill Lynch and I'm gonna get my finances together. It's my finances got jacked up and no one's coming to save me. I gotta save me. And I'm going to give myself the tools to save me. And now once I realized it worked for me, I can replicate this and show it to other people. So Lilias, talk us through a typical interaction with you and a person who's seeking out financial assistance and knowledge from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the majority of my clients come to me either through word of mouth or through the internet. A lot of them I have no previous relationship with at all, but they either feel connected to me because I share the truth of my story. And I try to share it in general that, most people who teach financial literacy didn't start because they were the expert. They started because they messed up somewhere and they had to figure out how to fix it. And once they figured out how to fix it, they said, I can help somebody else. I did start with predominantly focusing on communities of color. And then as I started working broader, I realized this is an issue across the board. It's not one that just affects community of color. This is one that affects people of all backgrounds, of all ethnicities, in all communities. And so when people come to me, they're pretty much at the point where they've tried everything they think on their own, and they don't know how to either dig themselves out of a hole or take the first step towards a new path when it comes to finances, or they have a goal that they just don't think they'll be able to accomplish without some accountability. So it's usually threefold. It's either they've ruined something and they're looking for someone to help them fix it. They know they need the help, but they know they don't trust themselves to do it alone. Or they really just had no exposure to this at all, and some sort of opportunity is in front of them and they don't want to mess it up. And typically I start everybody at the same place. Listen, you may think that you understand how money works and you may think you understand how a budget works, but I'm going to give you a formula that sets you up forever. This is a formula you can use for the rest of your life. And it really is a formula that will help you accelerate, propel. And it's the 50-30-20. And I did not create it, but I created my own version of it. So the 50-30-20 says 50% of your income goes to your fixed expenses. That includes things like mortgage, rent, utilities, food, life insurance, things that you have to pay on a monthly basis. The next category in my model is savings and debt, and it's 30% of your income. And the reason why I put savings and debt together is because the average American already pays 20% of their income to debt. So why don't we hold that number, and as you reduce your debt, increase your savings? Because everyone says save 10% of your income, but that's never going to be enough. Mm-hmm. So put them together. Don't take that debt payment now that it's done and apply it to go, vacation. You put it to your savings. So now you're going to have 10% for retirement, 10% for investing, 10% to give away. Then the last 20% is going to be your lifestyle. These are the things I used to be such a stickler. Like, listen, for you to spend $5 a day on Starbucks coffee per capita, you need to make $90,000 or more. So if you don't make that, you should not be a daily Starbucks drinker. I've thrown that away because I realized people want what they want. And so I can give you what you want, but you have to stay in this box. Now, if you can get creative, I have clients who have figured out how to reduce their living expenses from 50% of their income to 30% of their income. If you can do that and you're saving your 30% or you're paying your 20% debt, 10% savings until those numbers adjust themselves, you can add more to your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting people to understand, and our communities in particular, we have a lot of I should have this, or I deserve that, or I want this, or because historically we didn't have, now I want everything because I got my first good job. The mindset is where the change needs to happen first. And you have to change your mindset before it ever translates into management of your money.
Our mindset is under daily attack. And so I have 6 children by siring. I have
Me
4
too.
stepchildren. Hey, congratulations. We
Oh,
got here. We got here.
I birthed 5 myself. One is a step.
Excellent. I have 10 Brady Bunch on steroids combined with my wife. But I bring that up to say, of my 5 sired children, 6 sired children. You got me messing up. 5 of them are girls. That's why I have 6 kids, because my boy is the baby. I kept trying. I got a son. So with that being said, and I do say exactly what I'm about to say, and anyone who knows me knows this, I speak very candidly with my girls, because all 5 of them are of sex age now. And I tell them, like, here's the deal, babe. Dudes want one thing. Like, that's all. I'm a dude. No one loves you more than me. No one's going to tell you the truth more than I am. Dudes want one thing. Every dude that ended up married to somebody got trapped. Not the trap that we not trapped the way we say it with the, oh, you had your pill. Trapped like, I fell in the trap. I went there for this, and she made some good ass oatmeal cookies, and I stayed 2 extra days, and before I knew it, I was in love. Like, but I didn't go there for that. Most dudes do not wake up the way women do, doodling their name on the back of a paper behind somebody else's name, imagining their wedding. We want one thing, and we end up hoodwinked into the entire package. And it's cool. It's the way the world goes around. I'm not complaining. But I bring this up to at this moment for this reason. When I'm telling my daughters, if you know every guy you meet wants one thing, that's fine. You know what they, you know it. It's transparent. Whether they're telling you the truth or not, you know that. You walk in with this. What are you prepared to hold them to give them the one thing they want? What's the one thing you want? And it's a standard with our finances, with our mental health, with our relationships. We have to set a standard. We have to say, this is what works for me. And it doesn't replicate across all lines. It won't be the same for someone else. But if we all know that we're going to get our best foot laid forward before we get what we want, we get to now see, this is the standard. This person who comes past my house, they beep the horn and they want me to come out and get in their car and go away. If I'm okay with that, then that's what I'm going to get. But if I make the guy get out the car, walk to the door, ring the doorbell for me, meet my parents, or do other things, now I've elevated the standard. We have to do that for ourselves before we can expect anything of other people. And whether it's how we treat ourselves, the big phrase is self-care. If we do not love ourselves first and treat ourselves first, can we really be mad that someone else treats us trash? If we will not invest in ourselves financially, if we won't open a book, if we won't watch a program, if we won't watch a quick YouTube video to learn how to, so I filed bankruptcy in 2015. I was divorcing my ex-wife at the time. She was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. And I made a lot of money. So I already knew how that was going to go in court. And I was like, you know what? I'll burn this shit all down before I give you all my money. And I did just that. So I filed bankruptcy. I knew, like my man Jay-Z says, you put me anywhere on God's green earth, I'll triple my worth. I knew I could rebuild, but you're not getting what I got. So boom, I blew it all up. Why do I bring that story up? A financial genius, didn't know the first thing about getting back to where I was. I didn't know the first thing I grew up poor. I could handle that. I started to achieve some financial success. I was able to handle that. The rebound, I didn't know how to do. So I turned to people who knew better than me. I started to seek knowledge. I'll shout this dude out, Kyle Barton. He's a Facebook, excuse me, a YouTube influencer who deals primarily in credit cards. I went from having an 813 credit score, an American Express Centurion card, the African American Express, all of that, to having a 502 credit score and no one to give me credit. And through watching Kyle Barton's videos and doing some other research, I was able to get my first secured credit card. Shout out to the good people at Navy Federal. A unsecured credit card from Capital One. And now my credit score is up to 746 as of last check. I got more credit than I know what to do with. I know what to do with it, though, fortunately. And I realized, nothing's better than a comeback. We can all improve our situation if we're willing to commit. But that starts from having that belief that we're worth it. That starts from having that belief that we know at the end of this hard work and this path that we're laying out, the goal that we're seeking is there. So we got about 7 minutes left in the program. The hour always flies very, very quickly. I want to turn a question over to Simone. I want to ask, from a standpoint of the connection between mental health, self-care inside of mental health, and the thing that Lily has touched on about feeling what we deserve. How do we separate in a healthy way this attack that we're under from marketers for our dollar and being able to take care of ourselves by giving us the things that we do want, that we do feel as though we worked hard for?
Well, I'm so glad that I'm on here today, because I'm taking little notes of what Lily is saying myself, because I for folks like us who we're in a decent space in life, there still are moments where you struggle. So the connection of mental health and our finances, right? When Lilias was talking about, like, I'm going to give you the formula and you have this box, but you have to stay within this box, right? As soon as she said that, I'm thinking of clients and even myself, that's great until life happens. Yeah. And we all know when life happens, the first thing we want to do is self-soothe, right? So part of self-care that sometimes we loop into that self-care, a lot of our go-to self-soothing immediately involves blowing outside those lines of that box, right? I'm treating myself to something that is not in that 50-30-20, right? And connecting with people like Lilias, I think is good for, not necessarily the folks who are struggling over here, but even like everyday folks having, mental health. We talk about accountability partners, and I heard her say that within the financial space, having someone to hold you accountable for those moments when life happens. And we want to say, you know what, my mom passed, or I didn't get this promotion I was going up for, I'm gonna go out and buy this Gucci bag, right? Something that's not in the budget. Having people like, a financial counselor or someone who is an accountability partner in that space, I think is a really good thing for folks to have, that can kind of hold you accountable, because those life moments are never going to stop. Life is always going to continue to happen. And if every time it happens, and I think this is a pitfall that a lot of us fall into, every time it happens, we feel justified in treating ourselves or self-soothing, right? And redefining what self-soothing and self-care means in a way that aligns with, our financial mindset or our financial goals is, I think, something that we need to talk about more. Because if the go-to is to self-soothe in a way that doesn't make financial sense, then we're never gonna keep climbing and reaching our financial goals, right? So having these types of conversations where we can mesh the conversation of our mental health and, you know, our financial goals, so that we can kind of redefine what it means to be able to have self-care and self-soothe when life happens. When something happens that makes us feel really shitty, I need to know how to make myself feel better without going and blowing a check
Or buying 2 cheesesteaks.
or buying 2 cheesesteaks, because then that loops again around to our physical health, right?
Right. And it's doubly damning in my front, because then I ate the bad food and I spent money on it.
Right.
Lilias,
And then you're guilting yourself because you feel bad.
exactly. Lilias, I saw you wanted to chime in with something there.
I did. So the thing about this, and this is a space that I feel like just mental awareness and mental health when it comes to money are so deeply intertwined. So one of the things, so I have a book that I wrote, it's called Your Financial Style Guide, and it's Conquering Your Money Mindset God's Way. The one of the things that I have in that, it's a workbook, and it's confronting your spending triggers, right? And writing out a list. Here are the things that trigger me to go and spend money I didn't plan for.
Mm-hmm.
And once you write those things down, then in the second column, you're going to write an alternative. Here's what I can do instead of spending when I'm triggered in this way. It literally is creating a plan for you so that you succeed and really become your own accountability buddy.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece of it is putting on a different hat, right? Because we tend to also, when it comes to finance, especially in our communities, we tend to think that we are a victim a lot of the time, right? Well, how can we change our thought process to be a victor? Number one, no matter where you work, what you do, what kind of work it is, how much money you make, you are a CEO. And you're a CEO of YOU, and I call that your unknown future. And each one of us have to prepare for that financially. If we believe that the American economy is going to implode, if we believe that Social Security is going to be out the window, if we believe all of these things are not going to be there as safety nets to hold us up, how do we take charge of our own financial future? Well, putting on your CEO hat helps you do that, right? It makes you realize the CEO, if you look at the CEOs of some of the biggest companies in the world, Mark Zuckerberg wears the same t-shirt and blue jeans. He might have 40 pairs of them jeans, but it's the same jeans, right? You know, you have the guy, his name is escaping me now, Steve Jobs. He had the same black turtleneck over and over. CEOs have to minimize their thinking about things that don't matter.
Right.
I can't think about outfits. I learned this from Susie Orman when I was in college, and I read Young, Fabulous, and Broke. She said, I've been wearing the same pair of earrings for 15 years. Well, guess what, guys? I don't change my earrings either. Very rare, because I have to minimize, because I'm a mother of 6 children, I've got to minimize the decisions I need to make on a daily basis. So what are the things I can do to minimize my thought process? If I know my spending trigger is this, and this, well, I'm going to have a list ready of things I can do when I'm triggered so that I don't blow the bag.
I love that. Hey, we're done. Like, that's a mic drop right there. I loved having you ladies. I thank you both. Their internet, social media handles have been floating across the bottom all evening. I will definitely have these ladies back on the show if they'll have me to have them back. And I want to thank you both for a wonderful time. I want to remind you guys that we do this every last Wednesday at 6 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern p.m. We have the financial 15 minutes of finance. There's not the financial in front of it, just the 15 minutes of finance. So with that being said, thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Lilias. I appreciate you both. Can't wait to have you as members of the Financial Power Hour Network team again. And with that, remember, wealth is not only for the wealthy. Take us home. Thanks for tuning in to the Wild Network. For more great content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Wealth Our Way Network. Also, Don't forget to follow us on IG and Facebook. Remember, wealth is not only for the wealthy.